Robbie Blake joins me for this special coronavirus lockdown interview. Robbie, first of all, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Lee. I'm fine. I'm a little bit obviously bored and frustrated, but I mean it has to be this way, unfortunately, with what's going on around the country and around the world at the minute. So the most important thing is that we stay safe and healthy. And I wish all the families of everybody that they stay safe and they stay healthy in this pandemic that's happening at the minute. And hopefully, if we all stick to the government's guideline, we all stick to what's being told, we will get through this a lot quicker than not.
And how are you passing the time? I mean, some people are doing foot painting with their kids, some are staring at the walls. How are you passing the time, Robbie?
Well, obviously I've got a young son as well, so he takes up a lot of the time. We with him saying we can go out and have a little bit of exercise. We go out for a walk, try and keep our distance, try and keep it simple. But with them, you just got to try and spend. Luckily, the weather's been quite good, hasn't it? So we've managed to spend a little bit of time in the garden, do a few things in the garden, which I'm not being honest, but with this lockdown that's going on, you find things to pass the time away, and it's really difficult, but it has to be done.
Just really wanted to talk to you about your career. It's an absolute honour to speak to you, because I was looking back at your career in preparation for this, and some of the things that you've done and some of the clubs and goals that you've scored are incredible. I just want to look back really to where it all started. Talk to me about the youth career that you had before you started at Darlington.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the kind words before, as I said that, Lee. I did start out at Middlesbrough originally first as a schoolboy, but when I think it was 1985, correct me if I'm wrong, he went into administration liquidation, and they felt they could only keep a certain amount of youth players on, and they obviously tried to keep what they thought at the time was their best players. And luckily for some of the other players, there was obviously local teams, not as big as Middlesbrough, like Hartlepool and Darlington, that were within 15 miles really. So I was quite fortunate that a guy called Barry Geldart asked me to come in and train with them and see and go from there. And I think I was in there for about a month, and then they decided to offer me YTS, which was obviously in them days a 2-year YTS.
Yeah.
So it all started there, and obviously after probably about a year and a half of my YTS, they wanted to take me on as a professional. So, which was really lucky, because in them days, the leagues were so physical at that league, Division 3 level, which it was at that time. It stood me in good stead, because by the ages of 17 and 18, in against some really physical players.
Yeah.
Which it did massively help my progression into being the footballer that I was.
Did you go down the typical youth route, as the sort of older players talk about, the old cleaning the boots, dealing with that sort of situation? Did you go down that route yourself, Robbie?
Absolutely, and not, the thing I will say is that at Darlington we weren't blessed with having 20 to 25 apprentices. We only had, I think it was 10. I think it might have been 10 at my level. So obviously we had the second years, and obviously I was the first year then. And we had to you get one designated job, and my job was to clean the boots, and I was having to clean 20 plus boots per day every day. So and if them boots weren't dry and they weren't clean, then professionals would let you know. And I got a few tasty reminders if I did slip up a couple of times on the job, which inevitably you're going to do, because you've got that much of a responsibility. And I was cleaning over 20 boots a day.
Does that still happen nowadays, or is that gone completely out of the game? Because you've obviously been at Portsmouth now, or a couple of years ago. Has that gone out of the game now?
I think it has gone out of the game. I think you'll probably still find a couple of clubs do it, but it's not by the club's choice. It's by the players themselves. I think as a club, they would say to the scholars, if you want to earn a little bit of money, a bit of extra money, why don't you designate yourself to do, these boots, them boots, and try and earn a little bit of money that way as well. So I think that is gone where it was allocated for others. And I think certain things like that, Lee, should be still in our game. I still think it's part of being, want to be that person that you clean them boots for. You want to have that opportunity for someone else, not in a derogatory way, to be hopefully cleaning your boots in a good way. And that's not disrespectful and having a slave or anything like that. I think it's good, grounding tools for a player going through the ranks to see how, the big boys do it.
I mean, how do you think that youth football's changed since your time when you were working your way through the ranks in the YTS schemes?
I think it's completely gone a 360, Lee. It's not, you see certain coaches now who have stepped down because of bullying, and in them days, they've probably done the same as what they've been probably done at other clubs, and I don't think it's a form of bullying as such. Listen, don't misquote me there. Listen, there's no form, and I think a bully is a coward's act.
Yeah.
And I'm not, for whatever saying, sticking up for these players and saying, this. But what I'm saying is, in them days, it was completely different, and you can't really tell off an apprentice or a scholar now because it's seen as bullying or seen as too aggressive. And it's, listen, there's fine margins of how you approach someone or how you approach the situation. It's so tentative and so such a fragile situation to be in that it's really difficult to do it.
I mean, looking at stats, going back to your career, obviously 1994 you joined Darlington. I'm going from Wikipedia, so if this is wrong, I apologise, people, but I believe it was 68 appearances, 21 goals, and you were the top scorer in the 95-96 season for Darlington. I mean, breaking into the Quakers' first team, how did that happen under David Hodgson?
Well, I think in them days, you weren't full of resources, so you were always, if you'd been given a professional contract, you're always there or thereabouts gonna feature in some way, Lee, and at that occasion it was all about grabbing, the bull by the horns, as they say, and trying to really, make a real instant impact. And I was lucky enough to do that, and to people that have to take chances and take risks, and then it's up to that person to, like you say, to take that with both hands. And luckily I did that, and I think I got introduced in the later part of the first season. I think I started maybe 6 to 10 games at the back end of that season, which stood me in good stead because then I had a full pre-season with the first team, and it did not bring me on. And then before I know it, I was scoring goals and getting recognition, and I think that was just a great solid foundation for me to go on.
And then, obviously, after Darlington, you were still there, but you were loaned out to Waterford United, team based in Ireland. What was behind yourself going on loan to Waterford?
Basically, David Hodgson was in charge at the time, and he just said to me, listen, I think you need to go out and play a little bit of physical man's football, go out and see a little bit, get a change of scenery. You're going to go out there for a month and start, and we want you to come back a little bit more solid, a little bit more hungrier for it, and it happened, and I came back, and I went straight back into the team more or less, really, and then my career at Darlington started to take off.
What was it like being away from home? Because I don't know how old you were when you moved to Ireland, but what was it like being away from home in a different country in Ireland?
It was tough in them. It was tough then because obviously they were part-time, and you go from a full-time scenario to part-time football, and it was a bit of a shock to the system. And sometimes you'd play on a Friday, Lee, to be honest, and then you had the full weekend, and you wouldn't train till the Monday. So it was quite a large amount of Guinness consumed on them occasions.
What did you learn, Robbie, from being there at Waterford United? What did you learn?
I think the most things I learned was to be appreciative and respect what I had in England, really. And that we're very fortunate and very lucky to be in that environment, in that situation. So, in terms of the football side, I don't think I really learned a lot. But I thought, in that month of only being out there, I sort of grew as a person and became a lot more independent.
And then obviously the move back to England and then Bradford City. Let's talk a little bit about your time at Bradford City. 1997, you joined. How did that move come about from Darlington to Bradford?
Well, I mean, as you do when you've got the local teams around you, and I was getting a bit of publicity saying, he's the upcoming player and we need to go and watch him, and I know Sunderland and teams like that were interested. Because I know Peter Reid spoke to the club about me. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, it was a day off on a Wednesday. I got a phone call from Chris Kamara, believe it or not, saying, "Listen, we've agreed terms with Darlington." It was the January transfer window. It was the second from last day of the deadline, so obviously I had 2 days to get the deal done. And he just said, I spoke to David Hodgson. David Hodgson's given me the all clear for me to speak to you. Can you get in your car now with your agent and come to Bradford and hopefully we can sort something out. So that was it. And then on that Wednesday, I drove up to Bradford and we managed to get the deal done on the final day. And I believe it or not, I signed the same day as Chris Wilder, the Sheffield United manager.
Obviously, we'll get on to that. Obviously, your career goes on, but I want to ask you, you talk about deadline day. Can you just tell the people listening what actually happens when a player kind of signs, has agreed to sign? What actually happens with the medical and everything?
Well, I think in them times, medicals can be rushed through pretty quick. But you can also listen when something comes out in the news on Sky Sports that they've agreed terms. They've probably agreed terms 3 days ago. Sometimes then they get a long 2 days to do a medical. I mean, just going forward, my medical at Leeds, when I signed for Leeds for Birmingham, it lasted 2 days. But the medical for Bradford lasted 30 minutes. So, it's how they want to use it and how they see it. Listen, they look from a football club, from a medical side of it, they look at your injury list, and how you've been injured and what you've been injured for. And if there's obviously not things showing up, they take you through the normal tests of what a fitness test would include, and they go from there, really.
I mean, what can you remember from your first year at Bradford City? Obviously, you joined in 97, won promotion in 1998, but what was your first season like at the Bantams at Valley Parade?
I think like everything, I think it's the first time, because I signed in January, believe it or not, the first day I was there, I met the Queen, which was quite ironic, really. So, yeah, that was quite an honour. But it was just the first, when I signed in January, it was just about bedding yourself down more than you thinking. Sort of thing, you get that 2 or 3 months of a little bit of grace, you know what I mean, where you can bed yourself in. And I was always thinking, whatever I do that season I signed would be a bonus. But, the main part of it was come in the next season, get a full pre-season behind me, what is required at the football club, and then start to kick on. And that's what I did, really.
And now looking at 1998, it's the final day of the season against Wolves. What can you remember about that game heading into it at Molineux? Because I'd never been in that situation. What was it like as a player, Robbie?
It was incredible. It was incredibly the anticipation, the excitement, the nervous energy, and the importance of the game. And I always remember the game. We started very poor in the game, actually, and went 1-0 down. And I think the manager, Paul Jewell, obviously had real faith in me. And I always remember it was about 20 minutes in, and he screamed at me. And he as I turned, he looked at me as to say, "Come on," you know what I mean? And it was yeah, it was sort of like a little switch went on. And thought, you know what, he's right. And all of a sudden, boom, boom, bang! We were 2-1 up at half time, 2 goals. Peter Beagry scored, and then straight away after that, Lee Mills scored. So we were 2-1 up at half time, in a good position. And then, it was a constant team sort of goals. We must stay on the front foot. We must, do what we're doing from the last 25 minutes of the first half. And luckily for me, I managed to score the third goal, which was huge for us, obviously going up eventually. And we always knew that was a massive goal for us, because even though we had a two-goal cushion, we didn't fully know the game was over. As you know, you've seen it in football.
Yeah.
Football is a funny way of showing everything. And I always remember that we got a penalty as well at 3-1 up, and we missed the penalty. Pete Beagry missed the penalty to go 4-1 up, which with 20 minutes to go, the game's dead and buried, and we could have relaxed. And then all of a sudden, boom! I think Robbie King scores to go 3-2.
Yep.
And in about the last 2 minutes, Paul Simpson, remember the midfielder?
Yep.
He's had a free kick from about 30 yards that's hit the inside of the post, almost rolled across the line and hit the other post. And obviously Gary Walsh, who was in goal at the time, made the save. And I thought, oh God, that's it now. So yeah, it was an incredible day. Like I say, the anticipation, the expectation, the nerves, and it was just something. And you know what? Looking back, Lee, in the moment, as a player in any profession you do, or any sport, an athlete,
yeah,
they're the days you live for, and they're the days you're judged on, really, and how you produce on them days. And luckily, we did that, which was great.
A lot of people listening to this will want to know, were you aware of the other scores and what was going on in the other game, or is it just a case of we'll focus on what we're doing and it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing?
Well, you're always focused, because I always remember, that you can hear in the crowd, and I knew Ipswich were winning. We just knew Ipswich were winning. I think they played Sheffield United. That might be wrong. I'm not sure. And we knew they were winning 2-0. Because word gets about, when people asked at half time what's the score, and we knew we needed to win. But the most important thing is, we knew that we were ahead, and we were winning the game, and we had to take care of our matters first. And it just became more of a pressure situation, and like you say, we handled that pressure on the day, and we got over the line.
And obviously after that game, this leads me very nicely on to one question from Adam Goldring. I'll read the questions out that people have sent in later. But Goldie's asked me a question. I have absolutely wet myself laughing at the clip. If you haven't seen it, have a look on YouTube. You probably know what's coming, Robbie. It's the Stuart McCall incident. Again, when he's falling off the car. I can't do it without laughing. He's fallen off the car roof. Were you involved in that? Were you there? Do you remember the incident?
I was there, and I was about 15 yards away from him. So where he goes up the side of the car on the bonnet, I'm just stood with Darren Moore, the obviously ex-West Brom manager, now Doncaster manager. I was stood with Darren Moore just beside the car, and obviously he went up and then he stumbled. But believe it or not, through Macca stuff, he didn't even drop any of that beer.
It is mentioned in the video. What were you?
Soccer AM played it every single week for months, and Macca rang Soccer AM and said, "Right, enough's enough now, lads. Can you stop doing that?"
Whose car was it? Just out of interest, I never did find out.
Listen, I've absolutely no idea. I don't think it was one of the players. If it was one of the players, he probably would have been fighting in the car park.
What was you mentioned in Macca? What was he like in the dressing room? Because I think him and I'll come on to Dean Windass. I think they're what's known as characters.
Listen, Lee, we had huge characters in the dressing room, coupled with very, very good talented footballers. We had a lot of characters. We had a great team spirit, and it wasn't just one or two. We had so many players that would contribute to that atmosphere and that banter flowing and getting on, the camaraderie. It was, I'm surprised that half of the squad is not in prison at the minute, so they've actually done well, or they've put their IDs up over later life.
I've obviously got a list of questions. I'm trying to do this without laughing. Going into the Premier League, you've won promotion, Robbie. It's pre-season. What on earth are you thinking going into the Premier League? What's going through your mind as a player?
Well, you're excited at the challenge, and can you prove yourself to be a Premier League player? And this is all the hard work you've done since you've been a footballer. Now to play at the highest level, what's it all about? What's the team's going to be like? Have we got a chance to survive? And what players are going to come in? What players are going to go out? The anticipation of just everything, really. And, the supporters you're going to have, even though it's towards the end of the season, and throughout that season we had a capacity crowd almost every game. But, it was going to be a sellout every game. You're going to play against the best players in the world at that time. And it was just a great experience, and one that you're really proud of actually doing.
And obviously you were part of the history makers at Bradford the first time they played in the Premier League, but also you were part of the first ever top flight West Yorkshire derby. Fortunately came on the wrong end of it. You were on the bench against Leeds for that first game. What was that game like, playing in that derby?
It was incredible, because obviously we'd never really sampled that before. Certainly as them group of players, we'd never played against Leeds, and it was just a great game, and the atmosphere, and there was, because it's not really talked about, because you've got the Leeds United and Manchester United rivalry. The Bradford rivalry's never been there, although it is there. It's just not being played over a large amount of time. So it was a ferocious game, and one that you really enjoyed. You just wanted to be chomping at the bit to play in.
You've obviously mentioned Bradford. You were obviously later in your career in a similar situation with Burnley. You're in part of a squad that's come up, not expected to stay up, Robbie. And what's that like as a player when everyone's tipping you, we're going to go down? What's going through your mind as a group of players?
Well, you probably accept it, because you've come up. People obviously feel, or the experts feel, that you're inferior players, and you won't have enough over the course of how many games it was, 38 games, to have enough to stay in the league. To be fair, obviously at Bradford we did the first season, and I truly believe if Owen Coyle had stayed at the football club of Burnley, we would have 100% stayed in the league. 100%. We were in a comfortable position for what we thought was comfortable, and we would have stayed up that year. Listen, there's games to play, but the teams that we beat on occasions, and when we went away from home and played, we had a certain system with Owen Coyle, and it suited the players that we had, and we were really comfortable in it. And like I say, I do believe we would have stayed up as well.
And I will obviously touch on Burnley a little bit later. The questions coming about that goal, but I'll save that one because I do want to ask you, Robbie, that game against Liverpool, the game for Bradford. What's your memories of that one? Because I still watch it, and I didn't realise you were part of the squad until this morning when I was doing my research. And that's one of the best Premier League games I've seen. Bradford beat Liverpool to stay up on the last day of the season.
Yeah, it was incredible, because obviously we thought, well, listen, at least, we've got a home game, so obviously it's Liverpool, but, we'd rather be playing at Valley Parade than Anfield, which was obviously huge for us. Know that we'd give almost nearly every team, really, apart from probably the exception of Man United that season, a real tough game at Valley Parade. And I always remember, from a personal point of view, I remember going into, there were communal toilets at Valley Parade, so the away end and the home used to have to use the urinal in the toilet together. Do you know what I mean? So
wow.
I'm on the toilet, and Jamie Carragher's to my left, and little David Thompson. Do you remember the David Thompson, the midfielder?
Yes.
Yeah, well, he was to my right, and I just made a comment and said, "Listen, lads, go easy on us. We need the points more than yous." And they went, "Don't worry about it, because if we win and we get the Champions League, Gerard Houllier is going to bring all these big hitters in, and we might not play." So I thought, well, that's all right.
Well,
and we ended up winning the game. so it was great.
And people, sorry, Robbie, go on.
It was just tongue in cheek with them. They were just having a bit of banter. There's no way that Liverpool didn't try, mate. Trust me. So, it was just one of them special occasions at Valley Parade again with a great header from David Weatherall and for us to win 1-0 and Liverpool not to score was a huge feeling for us.
And people have talked in recent times about mind games being a lot more prevalent during your era, so to speak. What mind games did Bradford City use at Valley Parade to try and get under the skin of the opposition?
Well, we just tried to stick to our system the way we played, and we had to do that, and we weren't really into any so much of mind games and delaying tactics and playing this and playing that. We tried to just be as good as we could with the team spirit we had, the togetherness, and that drove us on really, Lee.
And obviously it's the end of the season and Paul Jewell left. Did you know that was coming?
No, not really. I remember I was away in Spain on holiday, and I got a phone call saying, "Oh, the gaffer's left." I was like, "What?" Yeah. So I mean, it was just there was no anticipation of that. It was completely, sudden really, and we were all shocked by it really. So no, we didn't expect Paul Jewell to leave. I haven't kept the team up. He's done a great job. We brought some really good players in. And it was quite a surprise.
And what was the difference between Chris Hutchins and Paul Jewell in their management style?
I mean, listen, it's very difficult. I always feel that Paul Jewell had Chris Hutchins as assistant manager, and I think it was difficult for Hutch because of the players always seen him just being a coach only, nothing else. And unfortunately, I do believe that Chris was a very good coach, very good at his job, but he was never, in my opinion, cut out to be a manager, and I think that's where the downfall was.
And then Chris Hutchins obviously leaving halfway through the season. Macca, as you said, Stuart McCall taking caretaker charge. It was the first time you'd experienced that, where players become caretaker manager. What was that like in particular, having Stuart McCall as the gaffer now?
Yeah, I mean, listen, not only that, it was too much upheaval going. We're losing the manager in the summer, and then Chris giving a go, and then obviously him losing the job. There was too much going on. We just tried to focus and concentrate on trying to do the job, and it was very difficult because even though supporters and think, you're a footballer, once you go on the grid over the white line, you're playing. But I can assure you that turmoil in the boardroom and upheaval behind the scenes can affect the team on the pitch as well. So it was just we needed some solidity. We needed a permanent manager. Whether that was going to be Stuart, who knows? But we just needed some sort of solidity, and it was a bit of a nightmare really.
And also at Bradford, people may not realise Bradford actually played in Europe. They were in the Intertoto Cup. One question I've written down is, did you know where Atlantis was, which was, I believe, one of the teams that you played in that journey?
Yeah, I believe that was in Lithuania, I think, and that was quite an experience. It was really, really strange going from just normal routine English football to being abroad, and it was a bit, it was all right. Listen, we got through against Lithuania, and then in one of the qualifying rounds we played Zenit St. Petersburg, which they were absolutely tremendous. I remember we played them out there, and we drew 0-0 away from home. We were like, wow, we've got a great chance, and we played them at Valley Parade, and I think we got beaten 3-0 or 3-1, and it could 7. They were outstanding. So, and then obviously at the time you think, we've been beat. And then you go on to realise it was Zenit St. Petersburg, which is, they're obviously a top team in Russia.
What was it like playing in Russia, Robbie? Because their fans have got somewhat of a fierce reputation. What was it like? What are your memories of playing against that?
I can assure you, every supporter or every player that has the fear of going out to Russia, the intimidation, the hostility of it, the freezing conditions at the time, which it was cold. It's everything and more than what you would expect, if you know what I mean.
Is it that crazy out there? Because obviously I've only ever seen the pictures, but you get pictures of ultras with their shirts off, and it's nuts.
Yeah, I mean crazy. Listen, it's their own way of doing football, like English football is, and it's passionate, it's hostile, and it's ruthless, and it's just different cultures, isn't it? And that's how they see it, and that's why you have to adhere to that, because obviously that's the way it is.
I mean, obviously the move from Bradford to Burnley, how did that one come about? What was the thinking behind that one?
I went to Nottingham Forest on loan because I wanted to go out and play games, and David Platt was the manager, and I absolutely loved it. What a fantastic football club Nottingham Forest is! Such a huge club, and a fantastic one too. And I felt really good. I had 3 months away. You know, they did try and want to sign me, and I thought, listen, I thought I was surplus to the requirements of Bradford, and I was interested in signing for Forest because they were going forward. You know, they had a really good manager in charge, and then obviously that didn't materialise. I came back to Bradford, and I think I played the remainder of the season, and I did quite well, to be honest. And and then it was obviously the opportunity to come to Burnley. Burnley bid quite a bit of money, and I remember Jeffrey Richmond at the time saying, "Listen, you know, we're gonna have to accept the offer. It's too much of an offer for us to turn down." So that was it, really, and then I left.
During sorry, go on.
Believe it or not, when I was having a bit of a contract dispute at Bradford, Blackburn, Ryan Kidd rang me up, and Blackburn had bid £4 million down straight away to buy me, and Bradford turned it down, and that'd have been like 1998, 99. So Ryan Kidd rang me and said, "Robbie, we're not going to offer any more. We're going to give Bradford City one payment of £4 million straight into bank account as soon as we agree the deal." And the club turned it down.
Do you know why that bid was turned down? Do you know?
They wanted more.
Fair enough.
And in 1998, 99 million pounds at this time now is a lot of money.
That's absolutely incredible. I do want to touch on the Burnley one. One game in particular stands out for me because I was actually at the game with my granddad, and it's a game where Svetoslav Todorov scored for Portsmouth against Burnley. Do you remember that game?
I can remember that. It was, I think, did you win 2-0? I think it was, wasn't it?
I think it was. No, it was 1-0. I think it was 1-0. I think Toddy scored.
Yeah, I remember it was. I remember the game. It was a tough game, and you know, Portsmouth had a really good team at that time, and we were just, in terms of Burnley's point of view, we were just trying to rebuild a good team, and we were bringing good players in, Lee, and obviously Portsmouth at that time were an established team, and they had a lot of great players in that team, and they were, you know, worthy winners of winning the league that year.
And you've obviously spent a little bit of time in Birmingham as well. It was a short spell. Were you happy at Birmingham?
Yeah, no, it was, you know, listen, I never ever wanted really at the time to leave Burnley on that time. I remember saying to the chairman, you know, well, listen, offer me a new contract, offer me improved terms. If you can get somewhere near what they're offering me, I'll stay. And they couldn't do that. So in the end, you know, I moved, and you know, it was a great experience at Birmingham, playing with some absolute, you know, A-list players, and you know, I felt I'd done well there. And I signed in the January yet again, and then in the May I thought, you know, I'll have a really good pre-season. Steve Bruce said to me, "Listen, we've had a bid from Leeds come in, but we're more than happy for you to stay and fight for your place. Think about it for 24 hours and come back to me." So I spoke to the missus and everything. We just bought a house in Solihull, and I said, "Oh, listen, Gaffer, I'm going to fight and stay and fight my place." And then, but about a week after that, he said, "Yeah, no problem. That's great." A week after that, he left me out of a pre-season tour to go to Norway and put his son in it. Put his son, who would come through the youth system, and I was like, "What?" He was like, yeah, your head's not right. We don't want you to go. So, I had a sort of a dispute going through the summer in pre-season with him, and then obviously I just thought, you know what, I'll just go to Leeds. It's probably no disrespect, a bigger club. They're on the up, looking to get back into the Premier League, and what an opportunity to be one of the players to get that team back in the Premier League.
What's it like as a player, Robbie, when you have a dispute with a manager? You've obviously played at a very high level. What's it like when you have a dispute with a manager and you know you're in the right?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because there's only one winner, really. There's only one winner. I mean, listen, I was on a long contract and I was on a good contract and I could have just sat there, but life's not all about just sitting there, is it? You know, you want to play football, and I might have, once the dust settled, I might have got back in the team and on the squad, but it was just a case of, to be left out of it for no reason, to be left out of a pre-season tour, without no explanation, and his son goes to spit like. It's a bit of a double kick in the teeth, really. So that's no disrespect to Alex Bruce, because he's been a good footballer. He's been, but the club signed me 3 months before then.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was just really strange. And but no, listen, there's only one winner, and the main thing is you put that to the back of your head, and you go and play for Leeds and try and be successful there.
And again, this is a stupid question. Why Leeds?
It is a stupid question. I don't mean that rude.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's an amazing football club.
Yeah.
An amazing sport.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Football clubs and football fans think, oh, dirty Leeds and all that. And I can assure you, having played for the football team and the football club, it's an amazing football club, an absolutely amazing club, fantastically supported, and the supporters really back you 110%. So they've come from the days of Champions League quarterfinals, this and that, and then to be in the Championship with lesser players, and they just backed you all the way, 110%. Just everything of the football club is amazing.
And there's 3 words that are synonymous with Leeds. That's marching on together. What does that mean to a player playing for the Whites of Leeds?
Just uniquely, it's just unique, and they salute the Alpha Corners, the way they sing, the way they get behind them, and just the way they support the football club. Listen, every club is very passionate. They have very passionate supporters. I'm not saying that, but luckily Leeds, they had a bit more of a following, so it was going to generate a bit more hostility and a bit louder and a bit. But it's just a fantastic football club, and one that when I look back, I'm really, really proud to put that shirt on.
What's it like playing for a club like Leeds, and in particular Elland Road?
It's just an honour. It's so proud because, you have to look at the honours they've got and the list of players and the list of great players they've had, and to be part of that football club at any standard, at any level, is a unique experience for a lot of players in general. And players, you ask yourself now, a lot of players, even in top, would say, God, if Leeds were in the Premier League, I'd love to play for Leeds.
Do you think that history, and in particular players like Billy Bremner for Leeds, do you think that has a part in getting a player to move to a club, or does it really come down to money, do you think?
I think money's always going to talk, isn't it? Let's be honest with you. But yeah, it does. It has that, the aura of the players that have been there and what the club's done, and even the players, even who's managed there as well. Do you know what I mean, Lee?
Yeah.
It's all that history. It's all that history that interlocks with everything, and that's why you see, even when they were in the League One and struggling with the points deductions, the calibre of player they had. You wouldn't have had that calibre player, no disrespect, to almost the team that was in that league.
And one player that was at Leeds is someone who's played at an extraordinarily high level. That's Toby Andre Flo. What do you remember about him as a player?
Oh, he was a great finisher, goal scorer, a poacher, and he was great at his job, and he was a centre forward, and that's what he did. He was hold up play, he was very technically good. but above all, he could really finish.
And then you from Leeds, you're back to Burnley. Why go back to why Burnley? Why go back to Burnley?
Well, initially, I said to you earlier on in the interview, I didn't want to leave. I always felt that I owed this is not a cop-out. I always felt the way I left and how I happened, I owed the supporters and the football club something back. I wanted to give them something back, you know, and I wasn't ever in a situation where I knew that would have been a really wise choice to do, because some people say you should never go back. But I believed in myself, I believed in my ability, and I always thought that I could certainly replicate what I did in the first period of my time there, and I thought I could better it, and luckily I think I did go on to better it.
Again, another stupid question. Which one was better for you, your first spell or your second spell at Burnley?
The first spell was unique in terms of having Stan Tennant as my manager. I still love Stan a bit. An amazing manager, fantastic manager. To him, sort of betting the foundations in for that football club to go on and to get the foundation sorted. I think Stan did that, and I think later that allowed the likes of Steve Cossell to come in and take the club forward, and Owen Coyle to take it forward, and obviously, Sean Dyche coming in now doing an amazing job. But I'd have to say my second spell was the one, because we created history.
And that actually leads me nicely on to your second season. The first season, it was a mid-table for Burnley, but the second season, Robbie, really, I just look at what I've written down. Promoted in the playoffs, played against Arsenal, the semi-final against Spurs, in which he scored. Let's start with the Arsenal one, first of all, one for Carl. What's your memories of playing against Arsenal? I think it was possibly at the Emirates.
No, it was actually at Turf Moor. It was.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a terrible night, because obviously I lived in Harrogate at the time, and I had to come over the tops, around the back of Skipton and over the tops, and it snowed so bad, and I was so late for the team sheet, and I remember speaking to Owen Coyle saying, "Listen, Gaffer, I don't need a warm up. I'll be there as soon as I can. I want to play. Don't change the team sheet." And luckily he didn't. I think we won 2-0, didn't we?
Yeah.
Lee?
Yes, believe so.
But we always, because we were on that crest of a wave, we always knew we were such a good, solid team that we could give anyone, certainly on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, on a cold day at Burnley, we could always give them a team, and we just said, listen, let's get after them in the first 15, 20 minutes, put them on the back foot, test the defence, even though they had a great defence, and see what we can do. And we did that, and obviously we managed to score at great times, and we thoroughly deserved the win, really. And throughout that season, people were probably saying, they'll go on now, and they'll get beat by so-and-so. But I think we proved that it was no fluke, and it was the start of us having actual Premier League players in that team.
And the semi-final against Spurs, Robbie, so close to a final of a League Cup. What are your memories of that one, in particular the game that you scored against Spurs?
Listen, it was. I think in that one particular game, I think it's the most emotions of up and down, positivity and negativity I've ever gone through in one single game. Recall we went to White Hart Lane and we got beat 4-1, and obviously everybody, this is it. You'll wonder what the score's going to be like at Turf Moor. And we always said, listen, let's just give them a game and let's make a game of it, and let's try and give some respectability to the scoreline. And then once the first one went in, it was a bit, right, listen, we get the next goal, it's a different kettle of fish. And we got the second goal, and all of a sudden you could just see the positivity come on our side, and the negative, for them, let's be fair, Lee, the pressure was all on them to come from 4-1 at White Hart Lane against the championship team, and if they got beat, having been 4-1 up at home, it probably would have been arguably the most embarrassing result it's probably ever been, really. So for us to be 3-0 up and really cruising at that time, really, we looked like we could. If it had been another 10 minutes, we probably would have gone on and won.
Yep.
In normal time. So it was just an incredible game, and I'd probably have to say that'd probably be in the top two games I've ever played as a professional.
So
yeah, it was just one of them nights where everything seems to work for me, and I played really, really well on the night, and it was just such a shame that they managed to score, in I think it was 2 or 3 minutes towards the end of extra time.
Yeah.
Which we'd have been able to play Man United in the League Cup final, which would have been an incredible achievement, but it wasn't to be, and you only have to look at the players they had in the team to realise how good that Tottenham team was. And we always remember saying, though, and what I'm saying about negatives and positives, we said as a group of players after that game, well, listen, lads, we missed out on Wembley for the League Cup. Make sure we get there in the playoff final, and we go there and we win it. I always remember us all saying that in the dressing room afterwards. And, 3 months later down the line, we did.
What's your thoughts on the playoffs? What's your feelings and thoughts about the playoffs?
Listen, I think from a spectacle point of view and a revenue point of view, it's great, isn't it? It's great because you get the opportunity, even though you finish in the top 6 or whatever league, how many teams go up the league or whatever it is, you get the opportunity to play at Wembley and to have a chance to get in the Premier League. And we knew that we finished that season so strong after Christmas League. I think we were in the top 2 of the form guide. So, we knew going into the pre-season, into the playoffs, even though we finished the league 5th, we firmly believed, not in an arrogant way, that we were the best team in that out of the top 4 of them teams, and we proved it, and we went on and won.
Coming on to that game at Wembley, sort of a bitter-sweet experience, because I was watching, I've spoken to you about this as well. You had a foot race, I believe, against Kyle Walker, who's been in the news recently. But what do you remember about Kyle Walker, and in particular getting injured in the final?
Listen, I mean, Kyle was just a very young, good footballer coming through the ranks, but I remember Stephen Thompson getting broke down the right hand side, and I've just sort of put on the gas a little bit. And to be fair for me, even though over a longer period of time I was never really quick, my first 5 or 10 yards I was quite sharp. So I remember getting away and gone, and then I just seen this Concorde come from nowhere, and he must have given me 20 yards to start with, and listen, I know it was going in, but obviously Paddy Kenny dived the wrong way, and it was going in the other side of the goal, and all. Just seen this big foot come away and take it off the line. So it was an incredible clearance and incredible recovery run. But then you later realise that he's gone on to do what he's actually done. And
I'm probably getting my things mixed up. Is that the game with the famous picture of the underpants? Is that game?
That's the game, mate. Well, listen, if you're going to broadcast your bum and your undies, there's no bigger stage than Wembley with 85,000, and obviously all the cameras on shore. So I think that was the time to do it.
But I do need to ask you, Bad Beat Bob, where on earth did that come from? Because I don't know. Where did that come from?
It came from, we used to have a core of players that used to play Texas Hold'em, poker, and the amount of times that I'd be winning going into the last card. The only card in the deck they could hit on the river card to beat me, they always used to get it. So the lads just nicknamed him Bad Beat, because obviously a bad beat is a term in poker. Yeah. So they just call me Beat, obviously Bob, short for Robert. So Robert, so that's what it was nicknamed. And we were playing Coventry City away, obviously 3 or 4 months before the Wembley sort of situation. And it was Clark Carlisle said to me, "Listen, Bob, he called me Bob, you see. He said, I've got you a present, but you must wear it at Coventry away." And I said, "Well, I need to know what it is." He said, "Just trust me, will you wear it?" I said, "Yeah, okay then." So when I walked in the change rooms to get changed, there was some red undies on my space. They had Bad Beat Bob, so the lad said, "Listen, if you score tonight at the recall, you got to pull him down." And of course, I scored, didn't I? So I just pulled them down. So that was the craze. And believe it or not, them underpants, I remember thinking, I think I scored something like 10 in about 15 games. So they were quite lucky and good for me in many ways.
And talking about luck and skill, moving on, the next season, 09-010, that goal against Man United, I suppose that's what people remember you for in your career, Robbie. What's your memories of that goal against Man United?
Incredible memories, obviously, first and foremost for a personal reason, but other than that, for a collective thing, for the football club, for the first Premier League goal to be against the Man United elect at that time, to have your first home game, your first ball, and to beat Man United. You know, it's history, and whatever happens in life, that can't be scrubbed off the board. So it was quite an incredible experience, and it was an amazing experience.
Who were you pointing at in the celebration? Because it's one of the worst celebrations I've seen, Robbie. No knee slide, no shirt around your head. It was the pointing. Who were you pointing at?
Listen, if you've ever looked at the size of my thighs, I don't think I could do a knee slide very well. I'd end up taking half the pitch up, so you got to be careful. I think I was just pointing at the crowd. I can't really recall. It was almost like just take that, you know what I mean? So, listen, when the crowd go wild, you tend to lose everything that goes around when you score, and sometimes you celebrate stupidly and you don't realise you've done it. To be honestly.
Do you remember that game against Man United, or was it really all a blur?
No, I can completely remember it. You know, I always remember thinking, bloody hell, you know, I could have been a villain because I give a penalty away, which Brian Jensen managed to save. And to be fair, even though Brian Jensen got a lot of plaudits, he didn't get enough plaudits as far as I'm concerned. I was the lucky one to score the goal and we win 1-0, but obviously Brian made a great penalty save, so it just goes to show that people who score goals sometimes do get a lot more credit than they actually deserve. So I think the most unique thing about it is having my pre-match meal was a KFC beforehand. So KFC beforehand and then beating Man United and then going back.
You're saying about the KFC meal. I don't think that's something you can make up, is it? That's brilliant.
No, well, listen, I'm only trying to be honest with you. It's not something I'm proud of, but you know, it was part of the game, wasn't it? It was part of the whole thing. So.
And obviously, from Burnley, you had two more clubs, Bolton and Doncaster, almost at the end of your career. What are your memories at Bolton? Because there's obviously now a club that's very much in decline with all the financial difficulties. But again, it's another massive club with big history and big players there from the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a fantastic team, and to go there and play with the players. And I always remember, you know, we were flying league. We had a really good team. We had Kevin Davis and Johan Almander up front. We had a really good group of players, and you know, I remember I think it was on 10 games to go, we beat Arsenal at home and we sat in 6th in the league, and we were having an incredible season. And as you always do, sometimes, you know, whether it's a mental thing or whatever, we had a couple of big injuries. Stuart Holden, who was a very good player from America, he got injured. Fabrice Nwamba got injured. I think Gary Cahill got injured as well, and it sort of disrupted us a bit, and we ended up, I think, losing 8 of the last 10 games, which in the end we only had an average season, but it could have been so much better. And then obviously we struggled the next season around. We obviously lost key players like Almander. Stuart Holden wasn't back. Fabrice had his problems, and we lost Gary Cahill. So, and that was a decline of everything then, really. And you know, we managed to get relegated, which was obviously very frustrating.
I don't know if it's something that you okay talking about, but you mentioned Fabrice Nwamba. Were you there that night at White Hart Lane?
It was horrendous. So it's not something you really want to go into. He's just so pleased that he, you know, had great people at the football club, and there were people that were thinking really fast to give Fabs the best possible opportunity and chance to get best help, and he did, and luckily, and now he's great at the minute, and that's fantastic news for everybody. And it was one of them great stories that turned out really good in the end.
Yeah, that's fine, Robbie. Thank you for that. And obviously, I'm over the moon that for Robbie's Mayday recovery. There's something we'll just move on to next is your club at Doncaster, the final club. At which point did you realise, do you know what, it's time now for me to hang up the boots? When did that decision get made?
Well, listen, I was approaching 38, and wasn't a lot left in terms of. I think I had other things going on. I was obviously going through a little bit of personal problems in terms of at home, in terms of getting divorced and things like that, and it was affecting me. That I was living on my own, and I always remember it. I knew. I met Dean Saunders at the Keepmoat Stadium, and he said, "Listen, I'll drive you to the training ground. You can have a look." So he's driving me around the training ground, and the thing that comes out of his mouth, he says, "Listen, to get out of this league, you need two big centre forwards. Get the ball forward early, get the balls in the box, and get people in there." I thought, well, that's not the way I play. So
yeah,
I knew then it was like, oh. But obviously I'd signed the contract, so it was a bit. So yeah, but it was one of them. It didn't end great in terms of that season. I think I made my first start in the first round of the FA Cup at Oldham away, and I managed to score. Believe it or not.
Still had it then.
And that was it. So yeah, and then obviously Dean Saunders left to go to Wolves. And then Brian Flynn came in, and then obviously we just had an agreement in January to let me go. And
from there, you've obviously ended up as a coach at Pompey. How did that come about, Robbie?
Well, obviously, luckily enough, through my contacts for football with Paul Cook, having played with Paul in my first spell at Burnley, he asked me, he'd come in at Chesterfield and have a look around, and so I'd done that. I was just going there as just being there with him and an extra body, or just give the place a little bit of a lift. And then obviously the team went on such a great run. Nobody had really good players at that football club, players that have gone on and played in the Premier League since playing in League One. I remember getting beaten in the playoffs at Preston, and then obviously Paul was going to Portsmouth, and he just said to me, "Listen, I don't think I can bring you down." His first thing he said to me. Then obviously we kept in touch, and then he said, "Listen, just let the dust settle, and we'll try and get you in some sort of scouting role in September."
Yep.
In September of that year he went. Anyway, I went down and I stayed down, and then obviously the job's become more higher profile in terms of then end up being a coach, and then I felt when Paul went back to Wigan, I felt for me to try and better myself and further my coaching, I needed to stay on and do a different path. And then Mark Catlin obviously gave me the opportunity, and listen, I wasn't Kenny's man originally, and you know what football's like. It's the way it's what it is. You like to bring your own men in, don't you? And they decided not to renew my contract in that summer. And Kenny brought someone else in, and then obviously that come about. We got to Bognor, which I'm still there now.
Leading me very nicely on to the questions coming in from everybody about Bognor. But Robbie, simple question. Why Bognor? Why are you a Rock?
Well, I always, when I was at Portsmouth for them 2 years, 3 years, sorry, when we played Bognor, it just had a great family feel and a great feel. The pitch was great. They played football in the right way. It was a fantastically run club. And it just seems like a fantastic place to be. And it is. And not only all that, it's the people, it's the supporters, it's the people behind the scenes, it's the people who run the club. Simon and Jack, I know there's other people, and they must take huge credit for how they run the football club. Some people disagree every now and then, but for us to be in this pandemic how we are now, and for them to be running the club the way they do, and making developments for the football club to take the club forward, deserves a lot of respect and a lot of credit.
You've touched on the developments, and for those that haven't seen the article with Steve Bone, what does that mean to you, Robbie, the fact that the ground is going to go through this magnificent transformation and become a ground for the future?
Exactly, and that's what it's all about. It's about having Bognor Regis for the future. Whatever league that's in or whatever standard you get to, it's about trying to move with the times and play and get forward and try and get your ground better as long as it's, done in the framework of money and financial things and it's not going to be a strain. And, like I say, with the people we've got running the football club, I don't think that'll happen. So it's great for the development. It's great for the supporters to come to a really clean and more tidy and more up-to-date stadium. And it's great for everybody. And it's only, listen, I'm quite aware maybe the team might have to take a little bit of a back spell to get the club into a position with the ground first and foremost. We might have to have a younger team for a while and blend it and mix it and try and mould it into a really good team. And I firmly believe we can do that. I think, yes, the first season I was there, we had a good season to start off with. Then we lost Dan Smith, we lost Lethbridge for a part, we lost Kimmy Mute for a part, we lost Chad Field, we lost Keaton Wood for quite a while.
Yeah.
And that does, with them players that you've named, it's going to weaken your team. I think you've seen that, because I think when we had all the players at the start of the season, we were unbeaten in 15 games. We're almost, bordering on playable at times. And, And the second season comes around, which you haven't always got the choice of these players. Your back four. Then you lose after a quarter of the season, Jimmy Mewett.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to replace these players. And don't forget, you lose Tommy Block to go to Hibernian.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that we played a part in getting them better. And we know that. But we've got to be realistic to say that there are a lot of players for any team to lose and still be as good. And I think we managed to bring some really good players in towards the end of the season. And, we have the nucleus of a good team. Listen, whoever stays, whoever goes in this season, we don't know, because obviously what's going on at the minute is very difficult.
Yeah.
But one thing's rest assured is, me and Jack will be trying all we can to keep kicking this club forward and getting us not only better off the field, but better on it as well.
And it's quite simple, Robbie. In your opinion, how should we progress now? Should the season end? Should it be done on points per game? Or is it, as it is at the moment, with the league going to be as it is and Worthing not going up and the teams not being relegated?
Lee, it's so difficult. There's no win-win situation in this, because while obviously after 29 or 30 games, Worthing so far have been the best team in the league, there's still nearly a quarter of the season left with nearly 10 games to go. It's very difficult to hand over the team the title when there's 10 games to go nearly, or 9 games or 8 games, whatever. It's very difficult. And as bad as it is, we're in a pandemic, Lee. People are losing their lives.
Yeah.
People are losing lives from nowhere. Now, listen, football is very, very important in my life, very important in everyone's life, and very important to the world of sport. But lives are more important than football right now. And unfortunately, it's just going to be one of them things. We ain't got the resources as a non-league system to play these games. We don't even know when we're going to be able to start training again, let alone play a game. And unfortunately, these things don't come round very often. And as bad as it is for the teams that are top of the league, and for as great as it is for teams who are in the relegation zone, it's very unfortunate. I can't see the season being played out, Lee, and it must be abandoned, and we must try and go again next season.
I can't imagine that news that view going down very well at Woodside Road, so I'll gloss over it.
No, I understand all that, and I understand their frustration.
Yeah, I do as well.
But there's something really, really serious going on in our country, let alone our country as well at the minute.
Yes.
The huge pandemic that is losing hundreds and hundreds of lives. And touch wood, I hope there isn't, but there could be Worthing supporters who have these effects.
Yes.
Or it affects Worthing supporters. Or there might be loved ones or lost ones from Worthing that miss out. And I'm pretty sure them loved ones or them supporters would rather have rather have their family members with them than winning the title.
I will move on to the questions now. These are ones from Twitter, and then I'll move over to the ones from the WhatsApp group. I don't know if you actually know the name of the WhatsApp group, Robbie, but it is called Shake It Up Blakey. Just to let you know that one, a little bit of information for you. Shake It Up Blakey. Yeah, and there's a picture of someone in their underpants with Bad Beat Bob on it, just to let you know as well.
Well, I'm surprised if you've got a picture of my bum. You must have a wide stream.
Let's go. Obviously, this morning on Twitter, I did ask for people to send in their questions for Robbie, which they have done. So this first one, just go through the Twitter, is from Mark Griffin at Fergie_senior, who says, best player you played alongside.
Best player I played alongside. I played alongside some brilliant players like Darren Anderson. Muzzy Izzet was a great player. Emil Heskey was a fantastic player. And I'd have to say, probably, which might be a surprise to a lot of people, I'd have to say Dan Petrescu. He was an incredible footballer. He made the game look so easy when the game's not easy. And he probably goes under the radar under a lot of times, but he was a fantastic footballer.
Next question that's coming in is from Mighty Claret, obviously a Burnley fan at Mick BFC. It's two questions in one, really. Is the goal against Man United the best you scored in your career? And did the celebrations and noise send a shiver down your spine?
Is the Man United goal my best one of my career? In terms of, with everything that goes with it, it probably would have to be, but I still believe I've scored better goals than that. But I think with the whole, everything with who we're playing, the history behind it, probably would have to be. And yeah, listen, the hairs on your back of your neck, all over your body stand up, and it's quite an amazing. It's not so much when you scored the goal, it's when you hear the fans chant your name afterwards, which is really, really incredible when you've got a ground like Turf Moor, which was hostile as it is. And when you've almost got every single person in the ground singing your name, it's something to be very proud of and quite a unique thing.
We've also got a question now from the Bogner fans, one of which is Robot Rock. If you haven't seen him, Robbie on Twitter, Robbie, his question to you is, who's your favourite robot in football? And please don't say VAR.
Favourite robot?
You can say Robot Rock if you want to.
I'd have to say, as boring as it is, goal line technology.
I'm obviously going to gloss over the VAR because we've talked about that.
Don't get me gone because we'll be on the phone for another hour.
Yeah, I'll move on, Robbie. Question from Ian Guppy. This stems from the Dean Windass podcast. Your favourite Chinese?
Oh, my favourite Chinese? Oh, it's got to be quarter crispy duck to start. And then it's got to be the salt and chili chicken with Singapore noodles. There you go.
If you
everybody get on that. Everybody get on that. We'll not go to another China. We'll not go to any other takeaway other than Chinese all alike. If
anyone ever thought a year ago that I'd be talking Chinese with a player who's played many times for Burnley and £4 million about Chinese, crazy. Dion Sampson, best manager you've played under, Robbie?
I'd have to say Stan Turner. A unique character, fantastic manager, fantastic man manager, and he won. I was very, very fond of. He was an exceptional man and a manager.
Next question also comes from Dion Sampson. He says, what's your biggest regret in football?
My biggest regret in football was not doing the other sides of the football game, as in looking after myself properly, trying to give myself the best opportunity to be as good as I could, because I believe if I'd have done that and looked after myself, I would have played even higher.
Next one from Mike Slate. He said the best player you've already played with. We've answered that one. So who's the best player you've played against, Robbie? And that's from Mike Slate.
The best player I've ever played against, in terms of an opponent, is Rio Ferdinand. Because I thought, in my day I was a good player, but he made me look a very average player because he was so good. Because I was lucky enough because I was both-footed, I could go both ways. But Rio just seemed to take the ball off me every single time. And, when people say, other people, I wanted that other more aggressive centre half because I could roll them there, I could get half a yard against somebody where Rio had the brain and the athleticism just to know what he was doing. But the best player I've ever played against has to be Cristiano Ronaldo. The list would be endless to why he's the best I've ever played against. So, what he's done, his longevity, not only what he's done but on the pitch, what he's done off the pitch, is an incredible thing that he does, and he deserves to be, in my opinion, the best player in the world. Not a shadow of a doubt.
That was going to be my question, so I'll move on to the next one. This comes from James Rufy. How many beers did you sink after that volley against Man United?
It won't have been beers, it would have probably been about 3 bottles of red wine. So, yeah, I remember not going to bed for quite a few hours because obviously win, lose or draw when you played in a midweek game, it's very, very difficult to get to sleep because you've got that much adrenaline and emotions going around. So, yeah, I think I sank quite a few bottles of wine that night.
Darren Crisp says, have you still got the Bad Beat Bob pants?
I've still got them tucked away, yeah. They're ripped as well, so they're all legit, they're all unique ones, and they're the ones that, celebrate now.
Fantastic. Just some questions. Obviously, Bognor fans wanted to know about Bognor, Robbie. Simon Pegg has asked, have you started talking to players for the next season?
We've just put casual conversations out there because it's very difficult. These people are probably looking after the loved ones or being in a situation where they're probably not thinking about football right now. Yeah. And we have to think about that. When we've just put respectable calls out there to speak to players and just see if they're okay, see if the families are okay first and foremost. And then like you say, when we're a little bit clearer with everything, there's a little bit of clarity when we can maybe start training. Yeah. And when we can start the ball rolling more, we will do that. But listen, we've put a few little things in there and everywhere. Listen, inevitably, there's going to be players that go and players that come in. It's natural. And we just hope we get the right balance and the right blend. And like I said earlier on in the interview, it might be where we have to go down a little bit of a youth a little bit because of what's happening at the football ground, and we've got to be quite diligent with what we do and quite respectful with everything. And listen, I firmly believe that we can have a very good season again and a successful season where the fans are happy to come and watch the way we play and the way we've got this togetherness and team spirit, which I feel towards the end of last season, obviously last season, it's just starting to come.
And Dave Robinson has asked, after reading Jack's article in the Bognor Observer, do you envisage many of this year's squad leaving?
Like I said, I do believe there'll be one or two that maybe go. Listen, there'll be one or two who maybe want to try and go on and better themselves and be a little bit higher, and you can't knock them for that, Lee, you know what I mean? We just have to see. But listen, with every other club, we're similar to ours. Not a lot of teams know what they're actually going to have and what they're going to do for next season. But it's all up in the air at the minute, whether it's a ball club or a player. It's all up in the air what players and what clubs can do things at the minute. So we just got to see. But inevitably, if I was being honest, there will be players that probably leave and there will be players that come in.
I'll end with a question that I did ask you earlier, so you have had a heads up on this one, hopefully time to think. And that is, if you were to pick a team of players, be it past, present, who you've played with or against, if you were to have your ultimate football team, who would it be and who would they be managed by? And that's a question from myself.
Right, well, my ultimate football team, I'd rather do an ultimate football team where I'd go Peter Schmeichel in goal.
Yep.
I'd go Cafu right back.
Yep.
I would go Maldini left back.
Yep.
I would go Baresi.
Mm-hmm.
And Cannavaro as two centre halves.
Yep.
I would go Loftus, holding midfielder. I'd go Robbie up on the side.
Yep.
Left side, I'd go Zinedine.
See ya.
And I would go nobody, the greatest player I've ever seen.
Yep.
He played in the pretty much because he didn't look at his as a Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, purely on their longevity of what they've done.
Yeah.
But in terms of natural ability,
Ronaldo. Yep.
Ronaldo would be my number 9.
Yep.
And Messi on the left side.
Yep.
And I'd have Cristiano Ronaldo on the left side of the
Thank you and everyone who's listening to this. Thank you very much.
Just so I echo that leader, listen, the more we stay indoors and listen, I know the weather's pretty good and we want to get out and we want to socialise. The quicker that we keep indoors and we keep people safe and we stop this pandemic from spreading even more is by listening to the government's guidelines and obeying to them. Because if we do that, the quicker we're going to be all out to celebrate the summer sun and the summertime of going back to football and going back to everything that we like to do in our spare time and in our life. So hope everybody stays safe, and I wish you all the very best in the future and going forward.
Well, cheers, Robbie. Up the box. Thank you very much, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, Lee.
Thank
Thanks very
you.
much, mate. Top man.